All right, apologies again. Hello, everyone. I'm Gracie, your host, and welcome to today's Tech Talk. What happens when technical skills alone are not enough to move your career forward? That is the question. Today, Nikki, founder and CEO of Inside Out Engineering, will share how emotional intelligence, communication, and relationship building play a key role in a long-term growth and leadership. She'll walk us through practical ways to navigate conflict, build trust, and thrive in real world engineering environment. We'll be leaving the microphone and camera on so you can jump in with questions during the event. So make sure you have your notepads and questions ready. And with that, Nikki, take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I am going to play the game of Can You See My Screen? Give me 1 second. Get this baby rocking and rolling. Full screen. Got it. Okay. You guys tell me, are we live? Yes, no, maybe so.
I don't see anything right now. Okay,
There
now I
you go.
do.
Cool. Thank you. It was a little bit of a delay on my end. Okay. Let me do this. All right. Now, first things first, I love everybody for putting on your camera. Like, thank you guys so much for already having your cameras on. Anybody who doesn't have their cameras on, no shame, no judgment, but I love doing these things in person. And anytime I can like see your face and see the subtitles on your face, I love it. I live for it because I love to know whether or not something I'm saying is landing, or you're like, Nikki, you sound like a crazy person. Like, let a girl know. I love the facial expressions. So live for it. It's what we're here for. Okay. So, and then if you don't feel comfortable with your camera on, that's totally fine. We've got somebody monitoring the chat, so feel free to just pop questions or comments in the chat as we go. I also love the emojis, so feel free to like throw those babies up too. I'm a big fan as we go through the day. So, like she said, I'm Nikki Maginn, and I'm here today to talk to you about emotional intelligence and how it is the key to your career success. And I know this because I'm a nuclear engineer and I became an executive in my 20s. And I started doing this work because I got so tired of engineers getting bullied and sidelined, and then unfortunately turning into bullies because they'd been bullied and sidelined for most of their careers. And I know we all have very powerful and important voices, and I truly to serve this community, the community that I love the most. So we can all ultimately like design things that matter and do things that are actively important for us and for the next generation. Okay. So like I said, I love doing these things in person, and maybe it is best if we just do cameras off for now. So feel free to throw comments and stuff in the chat as we go. Now, I mentioned EQ is key for your career success, hence this visual of my career, but it's also the single most important skill for success in life. And I'm not saying that to be hyperbolic. For trying to build better relationships, right, with family or friends, EQ is what gets you there. If you want to enjoy your work every day, right, find fulfillment, maybe not every minute of every day, right, but every day, EQ is the skill set that helps you achieve that. And if you do want to move up into leadership, EQ is what gets you there fast, which is exactly what happened to me. I moved from engineer to director in just 7 years. And that's usually something that takes a minimum of 15, and usually having to go back to school and get some sort of MBA. And y'all can see I did it in half that, and I skipped a lot of steps. I skipped a lot of levels in order to do that, and now I get to run my own company. Now, let's talk about why this matters in the corporate world, before we dive into the content itself, right? We all want to know why this is important, why we're here talking about it. 81% of companies now hire and promote based on soft skills alone, not technical ones. And by soft skills, we mean communication, collaboration, adaptability, being respectful, right? All the behaviors that EQ is built on. See, there was a time, many of us some of us may even remember when just having the right technical degree or technical background could actually secure you the job. But most of the technical world, back then, again, the technical world was job specific. But nowadays, the work that you're going to be doing is only job specific. So you may not even know exactly what you're going to be doing and the real technical skills you'll need until you get into the job itself, because every company is different and everybody has has a unique way of approaching a technical problem, which is why companies are now hiring people who have emotional intelligence, who have this adaptability, right? The personalities that people want to work with. And on top of that, Harvard has found that 90% of project success depends solely on stakeholder engagement, which means the way you communicate, the way you make people feel, and the way you build trust, those are your multipliers. That is how you grow your career. But unfortunately, today, over half the people leaders in the workforce have no people leadership training, no training like this, no emotional intelligence training. So, good news for you guys. You're ahead of the curve. You're actually getting some right now. So, okay, let's get into it. What is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is our ability to understand, use, and manage our own emotions in positive ways to relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others, understand others' emotions to ultimately overcome challenges and diffuse conflict. And I want to reiterate the part in bold, right? This is about managing ourselves, not managing other people. We cannot help others and we cannot understand others unless we fully understand ourselves first. Now, I know we're all dabbling software engineers here, and we all love a formula. So let's use a formula to define emotional intelligence today. So for me, EQ is a combination of self-awareness, empathy, and relationship skills, which means awareness of your emotions and their impact, the empathy to understand what others value and fear, and relationship skills to align those differences into shared goals. Because at the end of the day, we can't just force anybody to get along with us, right? We have to cultivate connection. And EQ is what allows you to regulate those inputs, the feedback and the environmental noise, to just stabilize the output of human trust, right? I love taking an engineering logical framework and applying it to the emotional things. Because at the end of the day, building trust, right? Trust, not your title, is what moves people and gets people to work with you. So let's talk about how this affects us the most as engineers and maybe areas we kind of get a little stuck. Because it seems so simple, right, when I lay it out, but it can be very challenging for us in the technical world, especially us as engineers, because we're taught to always have the right answer, to show no weakness, to solve all the problems, right? But to really move up in our careers, we have to use the most powerful phrase known to man. I don't know, but let me find out. So I don't know if we can use like emoji hands, but emoji hands out there, how many of you ever heard this phrase or used this phrase in your career? I don't know, but I'll find out. Some of us, awesome, cool, thank you. I love it. You guys are ahead of the curve. It's amazing. It's the most powerful phrase because this is the phrase that gets you visibility and earns you trust. And I know it sounds crazy because you're like, Nikki, you want me to admit publicly that I don't know something? Yes, that's exactly what I want you to do. Because you're showing somebody that you're vulnerable, but you're also showing them that you're trustworthy enough to identify it and then go solve for it. Now, my first job on that first picture was a mechanical project engineer, and I'm a nuclear engineer, which meant I knew nothing, not a single thing. And the best part was I didn't pretend that I did. I would learn what I could, and whenever I hit a gap in my understanding, I would ask for help. I would lean on these like mentors the company had. We call them like our buddies. And they were these senior engineers that we would get paired with that would help just onboard us and teach us new things. And over time, right, I got better and better, which meant my confidence grew and grew. But one of the best things I ever did, we used this phrase in front of a customer. And you're like, Nikki, you said I don't know in front of a customer? Yes, I did. Because that single instance, right, being honest and not pretending about the project on a call, or this technical thing on the call, and then going to get the answer and bringing it back to them proved to the customer that they could trust me. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but apparently it was like a little bit of a test because I was like the second or third PM that they had worked with. And they knew the answer to said technical question, and they would have previous PMs and engineering leads who would just lie through their teeth to save face because they didn't want to look like they didn't know what they were talking about. And I was just young and humble and very comfortable with my lack of knowledge. And the customer saw that and, believe it or not, went to my manager and wrote them the nicest email about me, saying how grateful they were that they finally had someone leading the project that didn't lie to them. And because I was so honest about what I knew and what I didn't know, they wanted me on every single project for the foreseeable future. It was amazing. So another area we tend to get stuck in as the technically minded, as the engineer, as the problem solver, is this doer, right? We get stuck as being the forever problem solver. Because, right, for most of our careers, especially as individual contributors, that's what we do, right? That's the work. But to become a leader, we have to learn to let go and let others step in, right? Let them try and fail, which I know is so uncomfortable, y'all. Like, for all of us, we all feel uncomfortable when somebody around us is failing. We don't want anyone to fail, especially not any sort of audience, right? But as a leader, it's our job to cultivate and create environments where everybody can be successful, even when they fail, right? Those environments mean that it's safe to fail and it's safe to pick ourselves up and learn from what we just did. Now, we can cultivate these environments even as individual contributors. It's actually how we officially become leaders, right? You start from wherever you are. You don't just need a title to be a leader. It's a choice that you make to cultivate those environments where you are. And we do that by being honest about our own gaps, right? Sharing learnings from our own failures with our peers, and for asking for help when we need it. And then when others ask us for help, we offer guidance, not the let me do it for you, right? We have to learn how to let other people try on their own and give guidance and not just do it for you, because that's how we get stuck in that loop, right? It's an art to get out of the cycle of let me just solve your problems for you. And because then the organization just kind of sees you as, oh, you're just going to fix the problems and not teach other people to translate those same skills across the organization. Now, it's an art, and it does require a lot of internal work to feel comfortable with yourselves and our own gaps. So how do we do that? Well, the foundation of emotional intelligence is knowing ourselves, and that comes from self-awareness and self-regulation. Knowing what we're feeling and when we're feeling it, and then moving to a regulated state so we keep our brain functioning properly. Because when we're in meetings and our ego takes a hit, like an executive asks the one question that we're not prepared for, right? We spent weeks prepping for this presentation and being prepared for all of the questions, and then you get the one that you don't have notes for, and your amygdala just hijacks the controls of your brain. It dumps these stress hormones into your bloodstream, and it just shuts down your prefrontal cortex, which is right behind your forehead here. And it's the part of your brain that's still developing to this day. If you're under the age of 35, this part of your brain is still developing. It's the part of your brain that has like logic and empathy and all those like really beautiful words and filters that keep you employed. And the problem is, right, you're stressed and you're still talking, and those stress hormones are now clouding your judgment and those filters, right? So a lot of things are coming out and you don't mean them to. And then on top of that, everybody else's mirror neurons, which are these like little antennas, that empathy antennas, right, that sit on your brain, and they're syncing to your state. So if you're tense, people around you get tense, right? It's what we call emotional contagion. It's why one calm person can quite literally lower a room's pulse, right? And why one frazzled manager can just raise everybody's cortisol. So, quick story. When I was 22, I was leading my first installation project, and we were in a freezer. And by freezer, I mean an actual freezer, negative 20 degrees, everything is frozen. And I'm trying to stay professional. Everything's behind schedule, but I can't feel my face and my eyelashes are freezing together. The crew is miserable. And I kid you not, like there's icicles on somebody's mustache. And somebody drops something on the floor and it just shatters. And in my brain, I'm like, if I lose my shit right now, if I lose my cool right now, the team is going to revolt, right? Everyone's just going to walk out of here and we are just simply never going to get this job done. So I take a deep breath, like cartoon visible breath, and I decide to crack a joke. And I was like, well, on the bright side, at least no one's sweating the schedule. And we're all engineers and we all love a pun. And so they like look at me and bust out laughing. And it was a deliberate choice, right? To take this teeny tiny moment to break the tension and get things back on track, because that's also a tool for self-regulation, right? It's choosing the energy that serves the room. Because while every emotion is valid, every behavior is not. We have to choose the appropriate behavior for the setting that we're in. And to do that, we have to regulate ourselves and calm ourselves down so that we can consciously choose the right emotion, right? So I was able in that situation to calm myself down and choose the right response, not let my brain choose for me. So I'm going to take a quick pause. Is this making sense? Because I know I can't see you guys, but is this landing? I see some comments. Making jokes, humor is a powerful cognitive diffusion tool. Yes, it is. It absolutely is. Thank you very much, Ben. I agree. It's one of my favorite tools to move things forward. Any other thoughts? Is this landing for anybody else? Even thumbs up. I'll take a thumbs up. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I just want to do a quick check-in. Okay. So once we've mastered ourselves, right, or at least caught ourselves in mid-amygdala meltdown, the next skill we want to focus on is empathy. Now you're probably thinking like, Nikki, empathy. I am not a therapist. Empathy is not therapy, y'all. It's data gathering, right? We're logical. I'm just going to use it to gather data. So what you're really asking is what's driving this person's behavior. So for us, right, if we're an engineer in the workforce, we live, or anybody in the technical space in the workforce, we live in two worlds. We have this like technical bubble that we live in, right, where we're the kings and the queens, right? We're the SMEs, we've got the data, we've got the bottles, we've got the hard skills. And then there's this other side, this organizational rule side, right? This organizational world where committees and sponsors, and you have to play politics. And unfortunately, we have to deal with both. We have to learn the language and speak the language of the other if we want to build relationships and collaborate cross-functionally. I was once managing this new product development for a nuclear reactor, and I had this brilliant engineer who could spin out this like finite element analysis faster than I could open Excel. The guy was a genius, but he was quite literally allergic to meetings. And he would say to me, like anytime I'd try to schedule something, he'd be like, Nikki, stop wasting my time. Just tell me what you need and I'll send you the analysis. Meanwhile, the executives were like, no, I need it in this very specific, pretty PowerPoint format. And it needs to be in these specific templates. So it was this stalemate, right? Like, and if I would try and push him, he would just disappear for 3 days. But if I was waiting, the committee was like, Nikki, why aren't you giving me an update? What's going on? They thought I was slacking or I was trying to hide something. And finally, I was just like, okay, enough of this. I need to get curious, right? Most powerful skill, most powerful emotion we can tap into is curiosity. So I got curious and I pulled him aside, grabbed a cup of coffee, and I was like, hey man, talk to me. Like, what's so frustrating about these meetings for you? And he was like, Nikki, they're just a focus killer, right? Like I lose half a day of productivity because I'm just playing PowerPoint junkie. I think we can all agree playing PowerPoint junkie is not everybody's favorite activity, especially when we're like, no, I love engineering. I love the technical world. I want to write code. I want to make something tangible. And PowerPoint is just simply not my favorite thing. So that was it, right? It wasn't just him being arrogant. It was him caring about efficiency, which we all care about. So I made a deal with him and I was like, look, man, you just send me a 1-minute video Just screen record, give me a little voice note, anything. I'll take anything every Thursday. And then I will take that and I will turn it into the really pretty PowerPoint that the executive wants. Awesome, right? Instant alignment. It wasn't Nikki trying to pull authority or try and like pull rank on anybody. It was just me empathizing with him and trying to understand what his deeper challenges were and how we could find a way to move forward together. Now, studies have shown, right, that empathy boosts perceived trustworthiness by 40%. So he trusted me more because I empathized with him. And my executives trusted me more because I was bringing in real data that they could understand. So empathy is for everybody, right, is how we balance this scale. This is not soft. It's not a soft skill. I fundamentally disagree. This is not a soft skill. And this is not therapy. This is strategic. This is how you identify the emotional equations behind someone's behavior. Any questions so far?
You can drop your questions in the chat, guys. It's okay.
Yeah, please do.
We can just read it. We can just read it and your questions, and then we'll get Nikki to answer it. So don't be shy. Drop your questions.
Don't be shy. Drop them in there. So let's unpack this a little bit more, right? When we empathize with our cross-functional partners, we stop just treating symptoms and we actually start finding the root cause. Because in corporate life, the problem that shows up in the meeting is rarely the real problem. There is almost always something else going on underneath it all. And learning how to listen for that layer and uncover that layer is what really accelerated my career. Now, believe it or not, every single role that you saw on that slide was handcrafted for me, quite literally. At multiple points in my career, I would have like 4 or 5 department heads come to me and just hand me a pile of problems. And they'd say, Nikki, we're having all these issues. We just need you to solve them. Call yourself whatever you want. We'll pay you whatever you want. These are the problems. Just go in there and fix them. And they weren't engineering problems, right? And it was not because I was the smartest engineer in the room. It was because I could connect with people, understand deeply what they were really worried about, and translate that across groups. So I'll give you like a little example for, so we had this new drawing software that the company was rolling out, and the development team was pushing out an update, and they moved a button, just a few centimeters. They just moved a button, and people lost their ever-loving minds. Why? Because they turned an autopilot motion into a thinking task. They created emotional friction where there used to be ease. Now, the development team didn't know that, right? They would not know that unless they were sitting with the engineers that were using the software day in, day out, and really understanding, hey, if you move my cheese, I'm gonna have a problem. They genuinely thought they were just being helpful. And I know that they were, that was the intention, but all people, and they created like these bigger fixes, which were great, but all anybody could talk about was the fact that they moved this one button that now I have to consciously go and hunt and search for. So when people ask, right, how empathy or EQ habits influence a career, here's my answer, right? If you understand why someone wants a problem solved, you are going to solve it so much faster and in a way that actually sticks. Now, I lived through this, right, even on the same situation, but on a really, really large scale with the same drawing tool. We had the executives, right, they created this drawing tool because they were so tired of not understanding the 2D drawings that the engineers would give them. And customers, right, customers couldn't visualize in 3D what the engineers were giving them in 2D. So the executives were like, we are going to make this new tool and it's going to make our engineers so much more efficient. So executives loved it and engineers hated it because the engineers are like, dude, you've never done a drawing in your life. How could you possibly know what makes me more effective and what possibly make me more efficient? So my job, right? I'm this little translator. I sit between the technical and the executive teams, and I sit down with both sides and I start asking some really important questions, right? Like, let's dig into really what's going on here. Because we as engineers, right, we need tools that give us precision, tolerance, installer-ready design, or installer-ready detail. But executives and our customers need clarity. They need something that they can see and grasp and understand quickly, because they're not all engineers and they can't visualize these things in their heads. So we have two very different audiences, two very different problems, and yet we're trying to force this one tool to rule them all, which is, again, a big challenge, right? There's no such thing as one tool to rule them all. And so we had to sit down and have that conversation, right? Identify the real need. So as much as they really like, and trust me, we tried this. We had an internal debate. How do we make one tool to rule them all? And finally, we're like, guys, solution's obvious. Let engineering keep using the tool that they need to use for actual engineering work. And then you can use the simplified version for our customers and our estimation team, where they're only doing like napkin sketches and I don't have to engineer off of it. That way everybody wins. But it really required the honesty and sitting with the discomfort of the emotional reality that we were in. We couldn't logic ourselves out of these situations. We couldn't just throw more data or throw more reports and say, this is more efficient. You have to understand the underlying emotional issues that are going on. And it requires leaders to be honest and say, look, the real reason we need this is for customer understanding. And to stop pretending that this is actually benefiting engineering. And engineering also had to clearly communicate why they needed specific detail and why they needed specific tools within their drawing set, because you'd be surprised how many non-engineers and non-technically minded people don't understand the nuance of our work. And I know from like a coding standpoint, like there are a lot of people that just simply don't understand backend or UI development, and to just say like, we can't do this because of the UI. It's not helpful. Like I need you to emotionally connect with me. Tell me why, right? Put that empathy to work. So again, this is not about being nice. It's really just about correctly identifying the human problem inside the technical one. And once we can do that, you become the person who can move any idea up, down, across, sideways an organization. Okay, making sense? Cool. I see some comments in the chat. How can learning to identify the real problem beneath the surface change trajectory from doer to leaver? Oh, what a good question. Okay, so the simple fact that you can identify that there's a deeper problem, that's what makes you a leader. Because a doer, right, you're just going to see the problem and you're just going to go fix it. I think of doers as like, I'm going to patch things up, right? I'm going to band-aid it. I am just being reactive. Whereas a leader is somebody who's proactive, who understands, hey, I'm playing chess, not checkers here. Just me solving this one problem that you're seeing is not going to really get to the root of the issues, right? Like if it's a revenue issue, which again, most important thing we can do in the corporate setting is make sure we're talking about how this affects the bottom line, whether it's like a revenue or, CapEx or OpEx. But using that language to describe like, hey, here's how this is affecting project overruns. Here's how this is affecting margin. If we just keep band-aiding it and you just versus, no, here's the deeper problem, right? We need a new tool. We need a new software. So great question. Thank you. Are you aware of online communities we can plug into? Yes. Oh, I do. Jacob, we'll talk more about this because we'll talk resources at the end. But so thank you. That's a really important question. It's something that I've actually been doing with a group myself. So we'll come back to that. But thank you so much for the question. Okay. So let's move on to our trust equation, right? So we've built self-awareness, we've built empathy, and now comes the real test, right? Turning that understanding into alignment. Because here's, again, a little bit of a hard truth. Logic does not move people. I'm going to reiterate that. We cannot keep throwing data and charts and reports at people and expect them to understand. Because as much as we really want to believe that we're these logical beings and we just happen to have emotions, in reality, we are emotional beings that happened to have learned how to think. So we are emotional beings first, and trust is what moves us. And trust isn't a mystery. We can map that out, right? Here's a little equation for us. So the way I like to think about trust is it's a combination of credibility, reliability, and vulnerability and removing of our ego. So if we translate that into a little bit more technical engineering terms, right? Credibility. Do they believe you know your stuff, right? Do you understand a little bit of their world? Do they believe that you're here to make their lives easier, or do they think you're here just to make things harder and more complex? Reliability. Do you do what you say? If you say you're going to make a design change or get some meetings on the calendar, do you follow through? Pretty simple. Vulnerability. Do they feel safe giving you the truth? Giving anybody bad news is uncomfortable, right? We all know that. But do they feel safe giving you, or, telling you that things are slipping, or maybe they don't like the design, right? How do you handle the feedback? And then the last bit, which is, again, arguably one of the most important, is our ego. Are you more about the mission, or are you more about your ego? Do you care more about you looking good, or do you care more about the team looking good? Because every interaction either adds or subtracts from this equation. And if people trust you, they promote you. Okay, so summarize it all together, make it practical, because we all love a framework. So starting with the self-check, the regulate. Before you send that email or you walk into the meeting, I want you to pause, right? Ask yourself a very important question. What signal am I sending? What energy am I bringing into this conversation? Because sometimes the best tool we have is just sitting in some silence, taking a sip of water. Remember, every emotion is valid, but every behavior is not. Then we're going to empathize, right? I want you to understand what's driving the other person's behavior, right? Assume good intent, unless proven otherwise, but ask the questions, right? What's driving this behavior? Is it pressure? Is it fear? Is it pride? Is it fatigue? Get curious. Your curiosity is the most valuable emotion that you can tap into in every situation. Then you're going to align, right? Use shared language to reframe the conversation from like, this is my project, this is my design, to our goal, right? This is our project, this is our design, this is, here's how we both win. And then we're going to reinforce it, right? We're going to engage with them, follow up consistently, because influence is a pattern, right? It's not just a moment, it's something we do consistently. So another material handling R&D story. I had joined a new team, was leading program and project management, and the team was just neck deep in new product development for this very large solution. And every single exec and every engineer were quite literally at each other's throats. Like every meeting was so emotionally charged to the point where people were actively calling each other names as if this was life and death, and it simply was not. And just very disrespectful behaviors. And it was just very, us versus them type of mentality. And on top of that, you have these leaders who just simply wouldn't write anything down, meaning every executive had a completely different definition of done or definition of success or idea of what good looks like, and no one would write it down. So the change was constant, right? From one meeting to the next, you'd hear a different thing from the same executive. And there's no definition of done. And my engineers were just running themselves ragged, right? Getting whiplash from meeting to meeting, just trying to make everything make sense and deliver what was being asked of them. Which told me, right, there's a ton of fear in this corporate culture, and no one wanted to be held accountable or to take full responsibility for the design. So I did a little EQ exercise, right, without them even realizing, because you can do these things, you can create psychological safety without like making it a full workshop, right? It can be very small little moments. So for me, I started setting ground rules for every meeting. And I also started recording those meetings. So we all had a single point of truth, and we could point to something and say, hey, this is exactly what was shared in this meeting. So no more gaslighting. Highly recommend. In the age of AI, there are some handy dandy tools, and recording meetings and doing documentation or doing note taking for you is a really helpful one. So we would kind of record our meetings, and then I would set ground rules, and we would physically write them down, like what behaviors were allowed, the language that we were comfortable using, what the outcomes, what the goals were every single meeting. And we would either like write them on the whiteboards in the physical rooms we were in, or we would put them in the meeting invites. So if you're accepting the meeting, you're accepting these rules of engagement, because that's something really powerful that we all have a shared ability to do. We all get to decide the environment in which we want to partake in, and setting ground rules, right? The rules for engagement for your project. You get to set the tone for how people work with you. And this one act, right, just this like one setting of guardrails is what allowed us to transform the culture of this entire project. Within 2 weeks, we were collaborating like a startup again. And that's what happens, right, when you take EQ theory and you put it into action. So as we wrap this up, because I want to make sure we have plenty of time for questions, I want to remind us, right, for us to grow in our careers, people need to know that they can count on us to deliver as well as create environments for everybody to be successful. Because in corporate America, everything is a team sport. Now, we may not be able to control everything in our lives, but we can control our emotional reactions. Because again, I'm going to reiterate it again, every emotion is valid, but every behavior is not. And that's what emotional intelligence is, right? It's being strategic with your emotions and being intentional about how you're showing up and the behaviors that you're exhibiting in these spaces. So I want you to think about your week, right? You're going to walk into meetings where logic isn't the problem, emotion is. Someone's defensive because they weren't consulted. Someone's burnt out and can't hear one more action item. Someone's scared of being blamed. And again, this isn't like poor communication. This is just psychological safety, right? This is building up a better EQ in your culture. And that safety, right, is built through empathy and consistency, not just a bunch of status reports, not a bunch of data. So I want you to remember, self-awareness is what buys you credibility. They know that you can keep yourself calm in the face of stress. Empathy buys you trust, right? People know that you care about them as much as you care about the work. And relationship skills are what buy you alignment, because that transactional work will really only get you so far. So reflection, I want you guys to think about this as we wrap up, right? What's one EQ skill? What's one regulation skill that you can use to influence, right? And help influence those around you and create a better environment for yourself and for others. Maybe it's just taking an extra breath before responding. Maybe it's asking one of your stakeholders, right? Like, what's really most important to you, instead of just pushing your design ideas. And maybe it's giving somebody credit publicly for an idea they contributed quietly, right? Anytime we can do that, we can help people out. So thank you guys for letting me hang out with you this afternoon. Thank you again for bringing your full hearts and your full brains, and for wanting to level up your careers from the inside out. And if this is something you guys want to work on more, here's all my contact information and all of the resources that I love to tap into. But yeah, let's open it up for questions, and I'll leave this here.
All right, so I think we can go back to Jacob's question earlier.
Yes.
That one, are you aware of online communities we can plug into to participate and practice empathy? This is what he said. Yeah, I
Yes.
feel like the world is still recovering from COVID and all. It's totally okay if you don't have recommendation stuff.
Yeah. Well, Jacob, it's something that I was really struggling myself to find. So I've kind of built one. I have a group of just engineers that are working on their emotional intelligence, and anybody that considers themselves technically minded. So if that's something you're interested in being a part of, here's either you can shoot me an email. My email's this one right here, or connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to help you out and share our little group. And then question 2 for later. I understand value can be found in so many places, but I'm curious, do you have a recommendation for a comprehensive enough leadership and empathy resource, podcast, books? Ooh, I mean, I'm wildly biased, but to me, Brene Brown is the end all be all, because she is she does leadership development, and she is a social worker at heart. So she deeply understands the human experience and the nuance of it all, and is very, very good at translating the squishy emotional things and turning it into something that is practical. I personally use a ton of her work. I reference a ton of her work when I do my own course, and when I do this with my own clients. So if you're just looking for things like that, Brene Brown all the way. we also have the Inside Out Engineering podcast. I will shamelessly plug my own podcast for these things, because we are also a leadership and empathy resource for folks. But great questions, Jacob. Thank you for asking for the resources. Next question, Mike. It's been suggested that only hard skills go on a resume. Are we then trying to show off our soft skills in the interview? Yes. Are there other ways to highlight our own awareness around our EQ? Ooh, yes. Okay. So, gosh, it's an interesting debate, because I have had this conversation with a lot of recruiters lately, about like, can I just put I'm an emotionally intelligent person on my resume, right? Like, I mean, to be fair, my resume is I teach emotional intelligence, but like my clients, my students that take my courses, like it is something that, the way I look at it, it's like a badge, right? There's companies out there that will, like, you can have a little, hey, here's my little badge. I've taken these courses. Think of it as like a certification if you want to put those things on your resume. But in reality, your resume is definitely like a list of technical skills. Your EQ skills are being shown in the interview. So it is 100% these days, because let's be honest, the first interview you get with somebody is usually somebody from HR. They simply have no technical background, and they're not asking you technical questions. And even if they are, they probably don't even know the answers to the technical questions that they're asking. So you could be lying to them and they wouldn't know, because they're not software engineers. They're not hardware engineers. They're HR, and they're measuring your ability to carry a conversation. They're measuring your behaviors. So we're seeing a huge shift in the job market to interviewing questions being more behavior-based. So tell me a time when you overcame this type of problem, not just, give me the agile methodology or the code that you used. I want to hear how you navigated the human systems in these corporate environments. So it is very much something that you're demonstrating in your interviews. And then other ways to highlight your own awareness around EQ. So it's a really, really good question. I don't know how much you guys are like big on LinkedIn, but I will say LinkedIn, I've seen LinkedIn shift to be more of like a personal professional brand. So if you want to showcase the skills that you have, right, for empathy, LinkedIn, like being engaged in conversation with other people, is a huge way to do that. Just kind of building your own presence, because LinkedIn is really just becoming like your online resume. And yes, like you do have your like technical skills on your like paper one, but LinkedIn is a really great way to kind of showcase like, hey, I'm engaging in these conversations. Here's all of the extracurricular things that I'm doing in my life, like mentorship programs, volunteer work, anything that you're showing that you're like a well-rounded, hey, I'm a community member. Those are the things that people are also looking for, that also showcase like, hey, you need to have some sort of level of emotional intelligence to be investing in the next generation. So those are some of the other ways I would definitely talk about, or at least showcase those skills a little bit more. Desiree, what's one EQ skill you recommend engineers can start improving immediately? Okay. Favorite thing to tell my engineers is, I want you to start applying all of the logical frameworks that you use to solve your technical problems to your own emotional situations. It's really, really simple. So if you think about like the engineering design process, instead of saying like, you're frustrated, you're mad, right? Say like somebody gave you critical feedback on your design, whether it's your UI or red lines on something. You have an emotional feeling, right? You have a feeling. You're either mad, you're frustrated, you're disappointed. It feels like an ego attack. The first thing, like, and this is still something I do to this day, I will sit down with the engineering design process and I will say, okay, let me properly define the problem. Is the problem that I feel personally attacked? Is the problem that I feel like my work is wrong? So ask yourself a series of very important questions to unpack the real emotional problem, because the emotional reaction that we have and we present in these situations at first is a biological response, right? Because there's something deeper going on. And the best thing we can do as an engineer is rely on our logical frameworks to help us unpack the deeper emotional issue. Because if we don't properly label and understand the root cause of our emotion, we're going to solve for the wrong problem. So, quick skill, easiest skill is apply the engineering design process to your emotional situation and really understand what you're feeling and why. And just think of yourself as like an emotion scientist, right? You're an engineer and you're just really interested in understanding why you would be having this emotional reaction. And it kind of helps you remove yourself from the emotional situation that you're in, and give yourself the ability to be more logical and analytical with it. That's my favorite. That's a good question. That's one of my favorite things to do. And I very much still do this to this day. Okay, question 3. I'm pretty well liked in my spaces. Go off, Jacob. And you don't know me. But one thing I struggle with is providing feedback. People like me until I disagree with them because I'm intense. Ooh, Jacob, I want to talk to you. I want to be your friend. Again, you don't know me, but do you have experience to draw from and are willing to workshop best ways to approach wanting to give feedback to someone? Specifically, conversation starters would be amazing. Okay, love this question, Jacob. So honestly, like, and I'm with you, right? I'm a very bubbly, really nice person. People also like me. And I struggled giving people feedback because I don't want to, because in my brain it's like, oh, I'm giving you feedback, you did something wrong. That's not true, but that was like the first thing in my brain is they're going to assume that I think that they did something wrong. They didn't. This is just general feedback. This is how I can help you improve. Oh, I don't struggle. Oh, I don't struggle. Okay. So one thing that I lean on when it comes to giving feedback, so 2 things. One is asking questions. Third-party comments on my weakness. I love it. So first things first, asking questions is the best way, right? Just getting clarity. Asking somebody like, hey, if are you interested in feedback? Before you just like offering it to anybody, first thing to do is say, hey, are you interested in some feedback? And if they say no, don't give it to them, right? It's a very hard lesson for us to learn. Sometimes people just don't want the help. And that's okay. Not everybody is interested or open to feedback. And not everybody is worth taking feedback from. Like there's certain people, yeah, you're welcome. Certain people that like I simply am not interested in hearing their perspective. So that like if someone's like, hey Nikki, are you interested in some feedback? And it's someone I respect, absolutely. Like, yeah. Can you tell me more? Like, is it feedback on this presentation I just gave? Is it feedback on this work? And always start with, hey, if I assume I've said yes, like, yes, I'm interested in some feedback. Always start with like, here's all the amazing things, I really like the way you did this, this, and this. Definitely start with like, you're going to soften the blow a little bit, and then ask another question, right? The power is in the question. Say, what was your intention when you did blank, right? What was your intention when you talked about the design in this way? What was your intention when you changed the color scheme? What was your intention when you moved the buttons from the left to the right? Just again, you're getting curious when it comes to feedback. And they'll explain themselves like, oh, well, it was an idea I had, or I got some feedback from somebody else and they wanted it moved to the left or the right. So again, you're gathering context before you just dump feedback on somebody, because maybe, right, we don't have all the information. Maybe we don't know why somebody made a design decision. And it's important for us to have the context before we just go like, I hate that. That's terrible. And I know that none of us are doing that. I know you're not doing that, Jacob. But again, you want to ask more questions. Like, help me understand your decision-making in this. Why did we just choose to do this? And always use the we, never use the you. That's another really important tip when it comes to giving feedback is, hey, help me understand, why we did this instead of why you made these design decisions. So, but yeah, thanks for all the great questions, guys. These are great. Are there any others?
Yes, I do actually have one.
Yeah.
Hope you can hear me. All right. How can an engineer who's new to a team can quickly build credibility without overpromising? someone
Ooh.
who's really new in the team, and
Mhm.
that's not a beginner kind of thing who just graduated, and
Mhm.
you see a potential, but he's new, so
Yeah.
how can he build this?
Yeah. It's really the small moments. So trust and credibility to me are really just kind of go hand in hand. And I love Brené's example of a marble jar. So trust and credibility are built in the teeny tiny moments. It's something very, very simple. Like, are you showing up on time? Are you coming to the meetings when you say you're going to come to the meetings? Are you fulfilling your role in the meeting? When, are you saying like, hey, I'll take notes and then actually taking notes? Or are or are you showing up late? Are you not participating in meetings? Are you, again, like little tiny moments. And if you say you're going to do something, you do it. Even if it's something as simple as, hey, I'm going to go get you a cup of coffee, or hey, do you need a pen? Right? It's credibility and trust are not built in the like, oh my God, I went and saved a kitten from a tree moment, or I just saved the company millions of dollars by fixing this bug. It's little tiny moments. It's me doing the thing that you've asked me to do to the best of my ability and showing you that I've done that. So think of credibility and trust as like a marble jar, right? Every little thing that you do where you are consistently doing what you say you're going to do builds you credibility. And it's not something, it doesn't have to be rocket scientists. It does not have to be rocket science. It can just be little tiny moments over time.
Right, I think that's a very good point, and we do have one last question from Desiree.
Yeah.
Most engineers are introverts. What advice can you give on how to build trust without feeling inauthentic?
Yeah. We are. We are a very introverted group. We have passions though, right? Just because we're introverted doesn't mean that we're not like excited to talk about the things that we're excited to talk about. So I would challenge you to find a shared interest, right, with whoever it is that you're trying to build trust with. If it's shared interest in books, in movies, in shows, in anime, in fictional characters, right? There's in hobbies. There's always one. We're all human and we all have something that excites us, and everybody loves to talk about themselves. So one and introverts don't like to talk. So if you can walk up to somebody and just start asking an opening question about them, and they can be really simple questions. Like I have this like 26 questions to build connection, and they're really innocuous questions. Like one's like the very first one is, if you could be famous for one thing, what would you be famous for? And just let them talk, right? Just and ask follow-up questions. You don't have to do a bunch of talking. Just get somebody else talking about themselves and they're going to feel like they trust you more because you're taking an interest in them. Even if it's just a 5-minute conversation over a cup of coffee. And it feels when it comes to feeling authentic, right? Like I hope you actually care, right? Like we really want to go. We really want to lean in and care about the people that we're talking to and asking these questions. So it can be very simple. Anytime you can just ask somebody a question and let them talk about themselves, it's a great way to build trust. And even still, right? Same advice applies for the credibility. Every time you do something that you say you're going to do, that builds trust with other people, introvert or extrovert.
All right. We do have another one from Jacob. It's kind of long though.
Yeah. Okay. Let's assume most of us lacked immediate leverageable opportunities because we either popped into a different career or are young. However, to this person who feels not necessarily overwhelmed, but like they're spinning their wheels. I'm confused. So, Jacob, are you asking like how to build connection? So, just how to connect with other people? Is that the underlying question? And if you want to come off mute, is I think it's safe to come off mute now.
Hold on, I can
Oh, you
adjust
mute?
that first. Yes, Jacob can open his microphone now.
Yeah, Jacob, I want to meet you.
But I don't want to say anything. No, I'm just kidding. I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, I was just curious. I feel like both me and also the people I'm connected to, even the community I'm in, it's just a general war zone out there.
Mm,
Lots of senior devs and mid developers are kind of being fired left and right.
mm,
Opportunities are shifting around, and it's just, hey, do you with everything you taught today, can you give to the person who's been looking for a year or looking for 3 months, looking for 6 months, looking for 2 years and is now joined another opportunity, but they desperately want to be in tech, a different
mhm.
way to maybe restart their job search or restart building those connections to be able to make it into the community.
Yeah. So I I mean, again, if as long as you're comfortable doing maybe some extroverted things, uh people love to talk about themselves, and you can use roundabout ways to make that happen. So, um I love to message people on LinkedIn and just ask them about their career and ask them about things that they're doing, right? So there's the companies that I specifically would want to work for. I would find somebody that either has an interesting job or is tangentially related to to the part of the business that I'd be interested in working in. And I would say, hey, I'm really interested in this and I'm looking to grow my skills here. I Would you mind having like a virtual cup of coffee, just 30 minutes, and letting me just ask you some questions about X, Y, and Z? So you're showing up prepared, right? You're showing that you have an interest in not only the company, right, but them as people, because everybody has something on either like their LinkedIn or Instagram that like shows a little bit about who they are as a person. Um, so that's really, really helpful. And I mean, Discord is amazing, right? Engineers are everywhere on Discord. But the challenge with Discord and most of your like Substacks are those are the doers. There's not a ton of like executive leaders and not a ton of like hiring managers on Discord and Substack. So LinkedIn is where you're going to see more of your leaders and more of your like hiring managers because that's where they look for talent. So LinkedIn is really this untapped resource. And at the end of the day, like getting a job is all about who you know, not what you know. And the more you can make connection and build relationships with people, and I say that because this is literally what I do every single day. I will post something on LinkedIn and people will either like it or they will see my profile and maybe we'll be in the shared space. Like there's a couple other people that there's a friend of mine does hiring for engineers and in manufacturing, and it's like EQ related talent. And we have a shared interest and we both love what we do. And so we message each other and we're like, how do we be best friends? So, I mean, obviously our messaging is very different than like how you would approach the messaging because our interests are different. But if you're mindful about, hey, I'm connecting with you with an intent, I'm interested in getting to know you as a person. And that's a lot of what I've done when I like do cold messaging to people is, hey, I'm really interested in your work in these spaces. I see you have all this experience. I'm trying to get better at X. Would you mind, have a virtual cup of coffee? Could I ask you a couple questions about how to get better at Y? Because people love to help at the end of the day. They really do. And they'll look at your profile and go, oh, you're not trying to sell me something. You just are genuinely trying to learn X. So LinkedIn, I know it's new, it's challenging, but it is, even if you don't want to like post on LinkedIn, even just messaging people is a really helpful way to do that. But that's where more of like the hiring teams are. So yeah, cool. Thanks, Jacob. Well, thanks for the great questions. And thank you, everybody, for the great questions.
All right. I think just to close the question and answer with this last question, I do
Yeah.
have with the overall trust equation influence.
Yes.
How does mastering this equation can influence promotion opportunities or leadership perception for engineers?
Yeah. Plain and simple, if people trust you, they promote you. If people like you, they promote you. It- It's honest truth. It's an uncomfortable truth. At the end of the day, slaying the corporate ladder is a bit of a popularity game. And yes, like you can do amazing work and you could just be like the most amazing developer, heads down worker. But if you don't build relationships and build trust with decision makers and get that visibility, you're never going to get promoted because they're only going to know that you're a doer, right? And the goal is to get yourself into leadership space. So you've got to be able to cultivate those relationships, to build that trust, because that's how you grow and move it up.
Yes, that's actually the honest truth. And everyone is kind of like, kind of scared to accept that fact, but that is the truth.
Yeah. We don't want to say it, but it's true.
It is true. But anyway, I think we don't have any more questions for now, since
Okay.
we close it now. And we again truly apologize for the mishap earlier with the trolls, but we did have a good talk, and it was the best one for me. And again, thank you for joining us for this week's Friday Tech Talk, everyone. And although a huge thank you to our speaker for keeping it super professional and all, we love that. We stand that kind of queen. And we'd love to have you back for another session in the future, Nikki. So to
Definitely.
everyone, thank you again. And be sure to keep a lookout for more live tech talks this month of love. Guys, it's Valentine's tomorrow. So I hope you're ready for the weekend and all. And again, all event for this month's Tech Talk events are already posted on our Meetup account. So don't forget to check it out and reserve your spot. So again, see you guys next week. Same time, same channel. Nikki, thank you so much. And everyone, thank you so much.